Welcome to our first Friday lecture video. So today I'll be posting two relatively short videos. So this is the first of them. This format hopefully works out well for you. Obviously it's a little bit different. One thing it's doing is if we do have to cancel face-to-face, if that were to happen and we move to an online format for the rest of the semester, then this gives us a taste. This means we won't be crashing into an online format. We'll have some experience with it already. We'll combine it with some Zoom and keep doing things similar to what we're doing in our hybrid mode now. But we'll also have some of this posted lectures and some more online engagement. So this first video, I'm going to talk about microeconomics and macroeconomics. So we've talked about economics as a field of study looking at decisions in the face of scarcity. So we're interested in, systematically looking at how people are deciding what to buy, whether to work, where to go, what to make. So macro means big. Macroeconomics is looking at the big picture of stuff. So macroeconomics is looking at what kind of tools is the government using to help manage the economy. So that could be monetary policy. So the Federal Reserve is in control of the money supply in the US. They're deciding essentially how much money to make to have circulating out there. And they print money with printers. That's where dollars come from. But much, much more important than that, they lend money to banks. They push a button on a computer and allow banks to borrow money from them. And they do all kinds of things, purchasing different treasuries and securities that allows them to have some effect on how much money is circulating, which can have effects on the overall economy. So things like monetary policy, which is related closely to inflation, the value of money decreasing over time is something called inflation. So, when your parents say, well, I used to be able to rent an apartment for $200 a month, you could look up an inflation index from the Bureau of Labor Statistics, put in the year that they were talking about, and look at what that means in today dollars. So $200 in 1980 was not the same as $200 in 2020. And it's about $400 today. So maybe that rent for an apartment doesn't look so different if we adjust it for inflation. Well, so inflation, monetary policy, things like unemployment rates, looking at the overall picture of how many people are working in an economy, those are classic things looked at within macroeconomics, taking this kind of big picture approach to try to understand what's going on. So within macroeconomics, of course, there are subfields. They look at things like trade between different countries, things like development economics, which is looking at why are some countries richer than other countries? What kind of things like productivity of workers can help explain these differences across countries over time? So those are all within the kind of macroeconomics realm. Microeconomics, as we've talked about, what this class is focusing on, is more about decision makers more directly. So we're looking at households, deciding what kind of housing should we be in? Should we be renting or buying? If we're buying, what sort of neighborhood should it be in? We can look at what kind of products people are going to buy at the grocery store. We can think about decisions about whether I'm going to try to get a part-time job or not. So labor supply decisions, consumer purchasing decisions, those are classic microeconomics topics, as are firm production decisions. So there's a flip side to things. People are buying stuff, they're consuming things. Those things are also made, and people are deciding to make those too. So that's another set of decisions we look at. We usually think of it in terms of firms, but it could be an individual running a lemonade stand would actually be a firm the way we talk about things, right? They're mixing together lemonade, deciding how much to sell it for, and setting up a table in front of their house and selling that lemonade. That would be a firm, a very simple one, selling a relatively simple product. But so firms can run from that to Apple making its iPhones and selling those. So we'll be looking at consumption and production decisions in microeconomics. Within micro, there are a bunch of specialty fields as well. So things like labor economics, focusing on the choices people make surrounding whether and how they will work. That is its own field, looking at labor economics. I look at environmental economics. So topics related to pollution and related to natural resource use. That's closely tied with agricultural economics. There's actually an ag department here at Western Kentucky, and they have some ag economists who think about farmers and other people who produce things. How do they make their decisions? So there are a lot of specialty fields within these, and of course there's overlap. So something like trade is a topic that you talk about at a macro level, trade between countries usually. But we also talk about trade in microeconomics because firms are buying and selling things to each other. Consumers are obviously buying stuff, and maybe you live in a neighborhood like mine where people are trading stuff. They're almost bartering sourdough bread for homemade jam, right? So macroeconomics, big picture, microeconomics, more individual decision maker. We'll be focusing on the latter of those, but it's important to have a sense of what they mean. One reason is if your parents ask you, well, what is the Fed doing? Aren't we going to have crazy inflation if they print a bunch of money right now? You could say that's a great question, and that is squarely a macro question. Perhaps I'll get a chance to take a macroeconomics course in the future. I'm not going to have elaborate answers for that question based on my microeconomics class. So one reason to know how to kind of think about these different topics is so that you can parlay some of those questions, and I'll foist them on my colleagues who teach macroeconomics classes. All right, I'll talk to you guys again soon. There'll be another video for today as well.